Hey guys, it's Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my May wrap-up. In the month of May, I read a total of 8 books, and I read 4 audiobooks, 1 graphic novel, and 3 novels. I got into like a really bad reading slump at the beginning of this month, and all I was reading was audiobooks. So yeah, it was pretty bad, but then one awesome, incredible book pulled me out of my reading slump, and I'm pretty sure I'm good now. But yeah, it's been a long month, and I wasn't reading a lot because I was working a lot of hours this month, and shit was crazy. But let's just get right into it. First book I read this month was Yes Please by Amy Poehler, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is a memoir that Amy Poehler wrote recently. I actually listened to the audiobook. It actually made it better, I think, because Amy Poehler is the one reading it on the audiobook, and she has a ton of like guest voices appearing on the audiobook, like Seth Meyers and her parents and just a ton of other people, and it's super funny and enjoyable. And if you love Amy Poehler like I do, then I think that it's an awesome memoir. You know, it's really funny, but it also dives into stories about her childhood and her time in college as a waitress, which I found like really relatable at that time in my life right now. And she talked about her experiences on SNL and meeting Tina Fey, and her time on Parks and Rec, which was awesome because Parks and Rec is one of my favorite shows, and I loved getting to hear more about it and behind the scenes stuff, and it was just an awesome memoir, and I loved it a lot. The second book I read this month was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and I actually listened to the audiobook, but I do own a physical copy of this book, so I'm just gonna hold this up. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I kind of have a long story behind my experiences with The Fault in Our Stars. This is technically the first time I've read this book in full. Like, I've never finished the entire book. I actually read this book a couple years ago, like before The Fault in Our Stars was like insanely popular. I read it like a long time ago, and I marked it as did not finish. I just didn't really like it. I didn't like Hazel's voice, but this was a time where I wasn't really reading a lot of young adult books. Like, it was in like early 2013. I was like finishing high school, and I didn't really like young adult books back then, so I didn't really like care for this book the first time I read it. But then I saw the movie like 2 years ago, and I was like, wow, like I really loved the movie, and I cried, and I just was like, okay, someday I'm gonna make it my goal to reread The Fault in Our Stars and see if I feel the same. I ended up really liking it. It is a really beautiful story, and I think that Gus is like one of my favorite male characters. I just love that he's such a positive influence even when he's going through so much shit. I loved their trip to Amsterdam. I was crying like while I was driving listening to this. It was very dangerous, and you know, yeah, so emotionalness, but it was really good. I really liked it. It was cute. The third book I read this month was Alex and Ada Volume 2, and this is the second volume in a trilogy of these volumes about this girl. She's a robot, and she's his girlfriend, and I really liked the first volume, but the second volume was just okay. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Like, it had some action and some like love sequences, but nothing really happened that was that important in my opinion, and it just felt kind of like boring and like a filler volume in between the 2 volumes. Like, I don't know, it was just okay in my opinion, but I would still recommend reading the first volume because that one was pretty good, and I haven't read the last one yet, so I can't speak for it. But yeah. Fourth book I read this month was Will Grayson by David Levithan and John Green. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. I listened to the audiobook for this one as well, and I just didn't really like this book. I just don't think it was for me, to be honest. I didn't like, because like the whole premise behind the book is that David Levithan and John Green are each gonna write a character named Will Grayson, ironically, and it's just like I didn't find either of the characters very interesting, and I didn't like any of the side characters, and it all just felt so over the top. And like, this is like usually the experience I get with John Green books, which is why I typically tend to avoid his books, but I just thought I'd give it a chance because I saw the audiobook, and I don't know, I just didn't really care for it. It just wasn't for me. I didn't finish it. I only got about halfway through it, and I just realized I didn't really care that much about the characters, so I stopped. Alright, the fifth book I read this month was The Epidemic by Susan Young, and this book is a sequel to The Remedy by Susan Young, and this book came out last year. The Remedy is a prequel to the program. So The Remedy is a book that takes place before the program. The Epidemic is the sequel to The Remedy. And yeah, I've been waiting for this book for a really freaking long time because I read this book last April and it ended on the biggest cliffhanger ever. So I was really looking forward to this book. Gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's probably like my least favorite in the program series, but I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still really, really, really good. I mean, Susan Young's writing style is amazing and fast-paced and just like makes you feel so many emotions. Like, she's a great, great writer. But the storyline as far as this one goes, like the beginning was really awesome and like action-packed and stuff, but then like towards the end it started to feel a little repetitive. And however, I still highly recommend this series. I wasn't as shocked by this one as I was by The Remedy, which I guess is what I was expecting, and yeah, it was slightly disappointing, but I still loved it a lot. Right, the 6th book I read this month was He Will Be My Ruin by K.A. Tucker, and this is actually the book that pulled me out of my reading slump. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I freaking loved it. Oh my god, this is a new adult sexy thriller. Follow this girl named Maggie. She recently found out that her best friend Celine committed suicide, and so they asked her to come clean out her apartment in New York. And so she strongly believes that her friend did not commit suicide because she's like, I know my friend, there's no way she would do this. So she decides to investigate for herself, like what happened in those last few moments of Celine's life, and she starts digging into her past. And while all that is going on, there's a romance that forms between Maggie and the building super Grady, kind of a love triangle between her and him, and then this guy from Celine's past, Jace, that she doesn't really know anything about or how he was connected to Celine's life. And it's just so good. Like, this book is full of so many plot twists that I didn't freaking see coming. I don't know why, and the whole time I was guessing right up until the very end, like, what happened with Celine, and I still couldn't figure it out, and it was freaking beautiful. Like, it kept the suspense, like, literally up until the last page. I was like, so good. And also the romance was so freaking good. Like, Grady was my favorite. Like, I loved him. He's so freaking adorable. I would definitely recommend this for fans of Colleen Hoover because it had the same kind of like intense romantic vibes that some of her books have. Now I'm definitely gonna check out her other books. This one was freaking awesome. If you like sexy thrillers, like, definitely check this one out. The 7th book I read this month was Pretty Baby by Mary Kubica, and I listened to the audiobook, obviously, and I ended up giving this book 1 out of 5 stars. I actually did manage to listen to the entire thing, though, which was crazy because it was like over 12 hours and I just wasn't enjoying it. I don't know why I finished the thing, to be honest. I mean, I didn't have any other audiobooks to listen to on the way to work at the time, so that's probably why I finished it. It's about this woman named Heidi and her family, and every day that Heidi goes to work, she sees this homeless girl that looks like she's like a teenager with a baby, right? So Heidi is this like humanitarian person, like she wants to help all people, so she decides that she's gonna like take in the homeless girl and the baby without her husband's approval or her 13-year-old daughter's approval. It's supposed to be like a thriller, like you're not supposed to know who this girl is, and it's supposed to be like totally sketchy, but like I just thought it was the most boring thriller like I've ever read. Maybe it was just so slow, and like even at the end nothing really happened. The way the author's writing style is, it's very wordy. Like, she will sit there and be like talking about how her character woke up that day and how she's going to make coffee, and then she's like looking out the window and the sky, so whatever, and it's like all the descriptions are so long. Like, just get to the point. Like, I just hate when books are like wordy, like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a thing that other people have problems with, but I hate that. I hate it. And I just wasn't a fan of any of the characters. Heidi's like one of those typical jealous wives over like every little thing her husband does. She's like, oh my god, he's cheating on me, you know, it's just so annoying. And her husband Chris is the only character I actually liked sometimes because he was the only one that was like, hey, why are we letting a homeless girl into our house? Willow's chapters, the homeless girl has her own chapters in this, and those were extremely boring too, like, and so drawn out, and just like these long stories about her past that I just didn't really care about. I just wanted to get to the point, and it just never got better. It didn't get better, so I just gave it 1 star because I couldn't think of one thing that I really liked about this book. So there's that. So the 8th and final book I read this month was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I got sent an ARC from the publishers and I was so freaking excited because Colleen Hoover is my favorite author, and of course I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. And honestly, you guys, like, I love Colleen Hoover and all of her books, and this one is her best book. This book is about this girl, Lily, who falls in love with a neurosurgeon named Ryle, who's like a doctor and he's like awesome. And then it's like a love triangle kind of between Lily and the doctor, and then this guy who resurfaces from her past named Atlas. And it's just this incredible story. It's so like moving, and I've never cried so much while reading a book in a really long time. Like, I was a mess from like page like 1 to like the end. I was like crying in my room the whole time I was reading it, and it's just one of the most powerful stories I've ever read. Like, it moved me and touched me in a way that few books have, and I cannot wait for more people to read this book. It's such an important message, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story, and like these characters will stay with me for so long. Like, I've finished it a few nights ago now, and I still like can't stop thinking about it. It's like all I'm thinking about lately is like this book and the story and how this has affected me so much. And I'm gonna make a full book talk on it closer to the release date because I really just want to like dive into it and talk about it, but I can't say a lot right now. But just know that it's the freaking best, and like it comes out this August, and it's so good. Like, Colleen Hoover has outdone herself. This is like her best book to date in my opinion. That is all of the things I read in May. Like, The Epidemic was the first actual book I read this month, and I didn't finish it until like in the 20s of the month, and like that's really rare for me to like not be able to finish a book within a few weeks, so it was pretty bad. But I think He Will Be My Ruin and It Ends With Us definitely pulled me out of my reading slump, and I think I should be fine now. But I don't know, because It Ends With Us might have just like crushed my soul forever, and maybe now I'll never be able to read because I'll be comparing like every single book to like that book. Alright, thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. So wonderful. I don't think I can say anything else without spoiling it. Actually listen to this book. I mean, Alright, and the 5th and no, just kidding.